It's go time.
Welcome to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble with your host, Don Charbin, with special guest, Adam Rita, a person who won 6 Grey Cup championships in the CFL.
Welcome everyone to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble, and today a very special guest, Adam Rita, one of the winningest Grey Cup coaches and general managers in CFL history, is on the podcast. Adam, welcome.
It's great to be welcome anywhere, but it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such an interesting world in which we live, where I've just finished breakfast, you're heading out to a nighttime practice.
That's right. It's we're 7 hours difference, something like that. Yeah. Well, technology today, you can do anything you want, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's find out about you as the person. You started life in Hawaii, and what was that like growing up there? What was the island life for you?
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, you can't. I think for the background as far as financially, we were a plantation type of family where my parents were immigrants. My mom's side was from Japan, and my dad's side was from Portugal or the Azores. And so I'm like a third generation of immigrant Hawaiians, I guess you would call it. So they worked on the plantation. My mom worked in a pineapple factory canning pineapples. My dad was a paneola. A paneola is a Hawaiian cowboy. So he was rodeo guy, worked on a ranch and stuff like that. And my mom was pure Japanese. My dad was Portuguese, Hawaiian. So we're kind of a mix of everything. I went to school there all my life. I was born in Honolulu on the island of Hawaii, but we moved to Kauai when I was 1, I think. And my dad worked there, and my mom. Living in Hawaii was great in the fact that you didn't need a lot of stuff. You didn't need to heat your house. You didn't need to have a winter coat. You didn't have to run around in long pants all the time with shoes. You could run around barefoot. So the cost of living that way was, and then everybody had a garden, everybody fished, everybody hunted. So, we didn't have a grocery store in our village. So everybody kind of helped each other out. I couldn't ask for a better life as a kid. I didn't know we didn't have money until until I went away. Oh, you mean we have to have money? It was kind of an innocent way to live. You know what I mean? It's like, there wasn't any violence as far as gun violence or anything like that. Now, once in a while, you have to kick ass to get your lunch money, but other than that, it was good. And then from there, I finished. I played football in high school, and basketball, track, and I paddled canoe. And I knew I wasn't going to go to university because we had no money. And but my coaches behind my back, without me knowing, had started the process of getting a scholarship for me in football. My buddy and we decided we're going to go in the Navy. So we signed up to go, and we were about ready to go get sworn in on the island of Oahu in Honolulu. And my coach called me in. He was also my counselor, and he said, I got 3 offers for you to go play football. And I said, excuse me, I don't have any money. And he said, everything will be taken care of. I said, I got 1 pair of long pants. I have 1 shoe. I said, I got a couple, no long sleeve shirts, no ties, nothing. He said, everything will be taken care of. Off I went to Boise, Idaho. And there was one other Hawaiian on the team. They had a tradition since 1956 to have a Hawaiian on the team. So it was pretty cool. I got there, and it was like 2,000 feet above sea level. And I couldn't get my breath the first time, and then you get acclimated. This is the first time I've ever been off the island, right? It was kind of a weird experience, but very educational. You learn how to live without your mom and dad around. Especially my mom, because she did everything for us. But it was a junior college, and then it turned into Boise State College, and I stayed. And then I started coaching there because my senior year, I already had a third knee operation. I went into the coach and I said, "You can give my scholarship away, but I want to start coaching." So I started working for him, and about 2 weeks into that, he says, "You got your scholarship back." So I was like a GA. I coached, and then after that, after 1 year, he put me on the staff full time. And that's how my coaching career started. And he was like my mentor. The way I think, my processing of how to evaluate, everything was done by him. And funny enough, coached 1 year for the BC Lions. And so when Vic Rapp called us when we were at Vegas at the time, called him, he said, "Who coaches your receiver? I really like what they do on film," because he was looking at our running back. And he said, "Well, Adam Rita." He goes, "Tell me about him." He says, "He's great." Had to lie a little bit, I guess. He said, "Well, I wanted to come up as a guest coach because in those days there was only like 4 coaches on the staff, right, in the CFL. So in the training camp, they would bring guest coaches in. So my boss, when we were at Vegas, accepted the job for me, and I didn't know anything about it because off season I was with my quarterback and receivers, right? So I said, "I can't go." He said, "You are going because the only person you know is me. And to stay in this profession, you need to network." So Vic Rapp was the head coach. I went up there. I didn't know him from anybody. The secretary talked to me. She, "Vic will be at the airport to pick you up." And I go, "I don't know Vic. What's he look like?" She goes, "He's short, very loud, and cusses a lot." I said, "I don't think he'd be cussing a lot in the airport." He goes, "You'd be surprised." So when I came off the plane, I came in there. I recognized him right away. Of course, he had all his BC Lions stuff on and everything, but and that's how I got. Technically, that's how I got into the CFL. We had training camp in Courtney, and one of the sponsors, they had some kind of oyster feed or something, and I met my wife there. It was a very productive training camp, I would say. I started falling in love with the CFL game, and when Don Matthews took the job at BC, he was in LA, and Steve Barado, who he and I coached together at Boise and at Vegas, said he's looking for an OC, offensive coordinator. And I said, he said, "Would you be interested?" I was coaching in Hawaii at the time. I said, "Yeah, it's time for me to move," right? He called up Don, and Don said, "Bring him, tell him to come up to my room." So I went up to his room, knocked on the door. "Hey, the door's open." So I walk in. Don is buck naked in bed. He's still in bed, and that was my interview. "You want the job?" "Yeah." He said, "You got it." Because Don and I knew each other, worked against each other when he was at Idaho and I was at Boise. So I knew him, and then when he went to high school, I recruited his high school. So we knew each other well enough, I guess, for him to interview me buck naked, but it was a shock. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, luckily he never got out of bed. It was pretty funny. Bless his heart. Can rest in peace, I guess. And so I told him, I said, "I'll take the job." He said, "No, you don't want to talk about pay?" I said, "No, you pay me fairly." He said, "I'm going to tell you this. Everybody's going to get the same amount of money, whatever it was." He said, "But you're the OC, you're going to have $1 more than everybody else." I said, "Fine, whatever." He was very similar to my mentor in a lot of ways. He told you what he wanted, philosophy wise, and then he would leave you alone to use your imagination and be creative and run the offense. he did tell me that he wanted to run the Edmonton style offense. And then when I was at Boise, we were a double slot, one back offense. So for me, it was very easy to add another guy and you're good, right? And so he liked it, and I liked what he was thinking. So we fit really good, and yeah, he taught me a lot, and that was the start of my CFL career. After working for Vic Rapp for about 4 years in the spring, in training camp. So there's two different styles of guys. They were really convicted on their philosophy and what they wanted to do. I'm a little bit more flexible, but where they're coming from. So Don was a little bit more wild. He was like, "You have something crazy." He said, "What did you always wanted to do on offense and never did?" I said, "I want to go no huddle, fast no huddle, and just run as many plays as I can." And he goes, "Let's try it." So I was at Toronto at the time. We were at Toronto. And so we were in fast no huddle, which I think people call it NASCAR now, but I'm talking fast. As soon as that ball was put down and the official put it in play, we had to play. The ball was snapped. We ran 100 plays that day. In those days, it was perfect because there's no timeouts. You could only use the timeout with the last 2 minutes of each half. So when we were in fast offense with a limited roster, the defense didn't know what to do. I remember Robinson was a free safety for Hamilton, and he would do that raid commercial, like the bug would go his feet up in the air like that, and he went down, faking injury to stop us, and that slowed us down. And so the next year, or maybe that year, they put in a rule that if you were injured, you had to stay out of the game for 3 plays. And that was the reason why, because we were a fast offense. And now you can take a timeout anytime, I think, and then you have 3 of them or something. But I thought that rule, we took advantage of that rule. And then the guy who introduced the timeouts was my defensive coordinator after I left. Because what had happened, we were playing Hamilton again, and he didn't have a defensive back in the game, and they scored a touchdown. And Don told him, he goes, "Didn't you have a plan for that?" And he said, "Yeah, call timeout." He said, "Well, in the CFL, you don't have a timeout." So what they did, I said, and he asked me what you would have done. I said, I'd gone to cover 4. Just go 4 deep until you can get your guy in the game, because the next play you can get your guy in the game. For one, as long as you cover the deeps, let him complete the shorts, right? But we didn't have anybody on this guy. And he ran down the field and scored a touchdown. So that was a kind of a learning experience. We were a good enough coaching staff that should never have happened, right? So that was Don's point. That's basically in a nutshell of how I started in the CFL. And I fell in love with the game. And when they expanded, I went down to Memphis for a year. I had signed a contract to be the head coach the next year, and then the Houston Oilers came in and offered our owner a lot of money to give up the Liberty Bowl until they built a stadium in Tennessee. And then he sold the club, and the owner was Fred Smith. He brought me in. He goes, "I know we signed a contract." He says, "I'm willing to pay you out because that's our obligation." And I said, they were so good to me. I said, "Fred, let me get a job." So I came back to Toronto. I guess I could have taken a year off and taken a vacation and gone back to Hawaii, but I think to be a good football coach, you got to stay involved. You can't take time off. Anyway, that was my excuse. And then I was lucky. I had some great players. I was in 8 Grey Cups, and one lost 2 of them by a point. It's funny how you remember the ones you lost before the ones you won. But we should never have lost those 2 games. You always second guess yourself, right? And the games that we lost, I was the OC, and we lost by a freaking point. Come on, it's the CFL. You can kick for a single. But we never got in that position. We were in Winnipeg, we were in Ottawa when we played Winnipeg, and the win was unbelievable. But we're doing really, really well. But then our head coach at the time, I think it was the guy from Montana, he decided to go for it. The wind was behind our back. He decided to go for it on 3rd down and 2 on the 20-yard line. And Louis had already kicked a single for 79 yards. So I said, we punt the ball with the wind because we're going to change quarters after that play. I said, we hurry up, punt the ball, use the wind, get 60 yards of real estate, and then come back on offense after we stop them. But for some reason, the head coach decided our offense was running off the field because they were thinking the same thing I was. So now we had to go back on the field, and we run a quarterback sneak, and we get stuffed. So now Winnipeg gets on offense. I think they kicked the field goal in that time, but we lose the game by 1 point. And really the only touchdown that Winnipeg scored was to Murphy. They ran a kind of a in. He threw the ball, and our safety came down. I think it was, I forgot who it was, but he came down, and the corner closed on him, but they came together, and Murphy just split them and went right in for a touchdown, and that was their big play. It was a poorly managed game, I thought, on our part. Yeah, that's the one loss. And the other loss was the first year in BC Place. We were in the Grey Cup. We're the home team, and we were playing Toronto. And I remember Coach Barado working on a 2-point play. He had a really good defense against it, and one guy made a mistake, scored 2 points and by a point. But offensively, we weren't very good. It was one of those days you just should have stayed in bed. There was nothing we could do, nothing I could do to turn it around. That was the hard part. As a coach, you always look at yourself first to see why things happen the way it happens, right, during the course of a game. And then you go to the players and say, okay, maybe I didn't explain this properly, or you know what. But it always starts with the coach. And it's like I tell my coaches, you can blame the players all you want, but you're the one coaching them. You're the one that chose them. You guys got to be on the same page. That's kind of the way I think about it. Some people think about it a little differently, that the coach is the dictator. And sometimes you are. But there are times when it's collaboration. You're partners with the players. You're there your number one job is to help them look good and to win. Pretty much to who I am, what I'm about. It's a us thing, not a I thing.
Hi, this is Jamie Rydell from TSN, producer, and you're listening to the Third Down Gamble.
That 1991 season with the Toronto Argonauts, amazing year. You think back, what did the Argos average that season per game? 38 points, 37 points a game. It was just unbelievable. What was that experience for you when everything was working?
We lost 5 games that year. We were 13-5, I think. It was one of the better records around. For me, those 5 losses was big for us because it straightened our team up. Because after a while, pros, they think, well, people in general, when things are going good, oh man, I can do this, I can do that. They become a little bit lackadaisical. The coaches sometimes get a little lackadaisical, and then pretty soon you get your ass kicked. Then you get back to reality. We had great players. I mean, when you think about our offense and the skill that we had, it was unbelievable. We got 3 guys in the Hall of Fame, maybe even more. The hard part about it was to set a priority on who's going to touch the ball, because you only got one ball. I remember Paul Mazzotti goes, "Where do I fit in this?" And Paul was one of the greatest Canadian receivers around. And I go, "Okay, Paul, I'm going to list it. You asked for it. Rocket, number 1. Number 2, pinball. Number 3, David Williams." And I went down the list. And he goes, "So I'm number 6. I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm not, I'm better than that." I said, "Yeah, you are." But where would you put yourself? Number one? I said, we're paying Rocket a lot of money. He got to touch the ball. Sometimes I put Rocket at quarterback, running back, whatever I have to do to get him the ball. As they went along, Paul realized he was touching the ball a lot because they were going to the other guys, right? And then he became a premier receiver, right? And that's why he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's on the wall, and he's all that kind of stuff. So being number 6 ain't bad when you become number 1 because they're chasing number 1. So, I try to be straightforward with the guys of what I think, as honest as I can, my opinion. And the guys appreciate that. And they know I always have their best interest in mind. Sometimes you have to discipline them like your kids, but very rarely. They're professionals. So if you try to treat them like professionals, and if they get out of line, you say, hey, that's not very professional of you. And we're all human beings, so we're all going to do stupid stuff. You just got to kind of take the good with the bad and hope that they all learn as we go along, right? Because even though they're professionals, they're still young men. You try to help them as much as you can, and I get to choose the guys when I'm the head coach or the position coach. So if I chose a guy, I want to make sure that guy is working good, that he's the guy, right? And the guys know that, they know I work late. They know that I work real hard to get them to look good, for our offense to go or defense to go or special teams to go. So, that's the one thing that they respect is the effort that we put in. And we expected the same from them. But 91 was magical, man. I was the perfect guy to be their head coach because I didn't want any glory. And we had Wayne Gretzky, John Candy, Bruce McNall, Rocket. We had lots of distractions. But my job was to keep the team focused and try to stay out of the limelight because it's never about me. It's always about the players and the club, right? Maybe I should have beat my drum a little bit more, but I'm just not that way. I was an ex-O lineman. We don't like to be on TV.
What was it like coaching in that Grey Cup in Winnipeg when it's minus 40 with the wind chill?
It's the coldest I've ever been in my life. I'm telling you. And I look at Wally, I say, Wally, I know you go to church all the time, but you get the sun, and I'm in the shade. And our heater didn't work on the sideline. I said, you must have blown it up or unplugged it or something. Right? He used to laugh, But it was an unbelievable game. We were up 7-0 before we even went on offense. Danny Barrett, I love Danny Barrett. He's a great guy, a good quarterback. They were throwing a hitch into the boundary. Ed Barry sat on it, and picked it, and went for a touchdown.
Is going to develop. Danny Barrett directs the attack for the Stampeders.
But Danny Barrett would like to do right away to get off to a good start. He wants to get the ball in the hands of those speed people. He doesn't know how long that sun's going to stay up. It's a fast track right now. The field is perfect.
And they start with the six-pack. They have 3 receivers over to the left side. Now they swing 2 of the 5 that had initially gone there over to the right. Barrett throwing to his right. It's intercepted by Ed Barry. Barry down the sidelines. Touchdown. A 52-yard interception return for a touchdown by Ed Barry.
Ed should have had 2 touchdowns in the first 2 series because the next one he dropped. And then it went. We didn't even have to have a first down to win that game. I saw that they had a big hole in the kickoff return. So we got 2 sky kicks in there. I think it was Keith Costello. I owe him a Grey Cup ring because he made 2 great plays in there. Got the ball for us. The next play, we were in the end zone. 2 touchdowns were off a sky kick on the kickoff return. We took away 2 drives of Calgary's offense. Calgary must have had almost 500 yards of offense because we went in, scored, they went off. We went in, scored. Well, we got a turnover, scored. They scored 2 touchdowns, I think, on us early or during the course of the game. They're going to kick off to us. And so I saw they were always trying to kick the ball to DK Smith. So I had a 3-man return guys back there. So I said, DK, I got the guys just before the kickoff, and Mike Levinsteller was my special teams coach. He got the guys together. I said, this is what we're going to do. I said, we're going to rotate when the ball's in the air as he kicks it. DK, you rotate up and block one, and Rocket, you move from the middle to where DK was. They're going to kick the ball to you. I want you to take a couple steps off the field, and I want to hit to the far hash. Pinball, you hang out there just in case they want to kick it to you, which I doubt they will. And then you just form a wall there. Just kick the most dangerous man out or in. So DK started complaining. And I remember it was Andrew Murray said, DK, listen to the coach. He said, well, they're kicking the ball to me. I can run it back to the house. DK, they did it twice to you. I think you had your chance. It's time for Rocket. And that the rest was history. Rocket took it to the house.
The Rocket looks for a hole. If he gets to the outside this time, he's gone.
Goodbye.
The Rocket delivers. The $1 Million Man provides cause for celebration among the Toronto Argonaut owners. An 87-yard kickoff return.
Because I knew if I got Rocket to the field, there was not one human being on that field that was as fast as he was, right? So he can take away angles, and I mean, the CFL is perfect for his speed. And that was basically, I thought, was the killer of a play, because that really iced them. They didn't have any time after that. It was the weirdest game, really, I've ever coached in. We really weren't on the field much on offense. It was either, we got the ball in special teams, we went down and scored. Just one play. I remember their safety was kind of settling. When Dunnigan would plant his foot, the safety would quit dropping. So we had this play, it was a vertical play, double seam, and a fake draw. And I always fake the draw to the right if he's a right-hand quarterback, so he doesn't have to look at the guy, right? And look at the cover. He can look at the coverage. Had Matt come on the sideline, and I said, Matt, let's call 141 verticals. He goes, I'm not going to turn my back to the defense. I said, well, if you came to practice, you'd know we don't turn the ball, turn our back. We always fake to the right. All right. I said, Foggy, get warmed up. And Duddy goes, oh, you're going to do that to me, huh? I says, don't you want to win the game? He goes, yeah, something like some conversation like that. And he gives me the, and he walks and stomping on the field. Touchdown. He goes, you're lucky. I said, yep, I'm lucky I got you as my quarterback. But he was a tough hombre. And that was a weird thing because Ricky Foggy was going to play in that game. So Ricky won 9 out of 10 games for us because Matty was hurt, or 8 out of 9 down the stretch there. Matty came back for the Winnipeg game in the playoffs. We beat him 42 whatever, but he got hurt in the game because he already had a broken collarbone. It was just healing, and he knocked it loose. So we didn't expect him to play. So I had Matty have all the meetings. I would say kind of a general idea of what I wanted, and I said, you got the meetings, from now on. So he did, and I think it was Friday night or Saturday, I'm not sure. Friday. It was the day before the game. Mike McCarthy comes in, he goes, our GM, he goes, Matty's starting. I said, Matty can't even lift his arm up. He goes, well, I took him into the ballroom, and we were throwing the ball around. And I go, you did what? He says, well, Matty thinks he can play. So I said, okay. So I brought Matty in. I said, Matty, this is a game. I know it's a Grey Cup game, but if this ruins your career because you're going to play hurt, I'm not ever going to forgive myself. I said, I want doctor's permission. I already know you're going to play, mentally, and I want your parents and your wife. So they all gave him an okay, so I played him. But I had to tell Foggy, and that was the most heartbreaking conversation I ever had. this is what Ricky told me. He said, if I was in that position, would you do that for me? And I said, you bet your ass. So when Matty left to go to Winnipeg, I had Ricky Foggy as my starter. I was happy for that. Not that I lost Matty. I wasn't happy about that either, but I had Ricky. And that's probably the way the ownership thought about, because he had won so many games for us. But Ricky had a hairline fracture in his ankle after the first preseason game. So he couldn't do what he does, which is move. You know, he could move and he could make things happen. So I remember, it was the next year, it was 92, I guess. So he couldn't play. So they bring in and I had run out of quarterbacks because the year before, in 1990, we went through 5 quarterbacks because Matty got hurt that year too. But all those quarterbacks had played for us before. So the system, they knew the system, right? So that was easy. But the following year, all these guys were gone. We had no veteran backup. So when Ricky got hurt, we tried this guy, and then we brought in a guy from the NFL who'd never played in the NFL. He was there for 10 years, and he was the backup. And he had no clue what was going on. So we go to BC. Michael goes, Coach, Mr. McCarthy goes, you are going to start this other kid. I don't want to name him because he's a great kid. And the kid goes to me, Coach, I've only been here for 3 days. I don't even know where the 12th guy is. I said, you're starting. And so the kid goes in the game, and I call verticals, and he hits the guy for like 69 yards. Everybody, comes off. We kick a field goal. He comes off the field, goes, Coach, I wasn't throwing to that guy. I go, what? He goes, I wasn't throwing the guy. I didn't even know he was there. He goes, get Ricky ready. He said, I have no clue what's going on there. And he was professional enough to be honest, right? And so Ricky went in. Then they kicked him out of the game as he was going in the huddle because his spat was the wrong color. And I go, what? I said, the spat matches the shoe, which is black. We're using black tape. And he goes, nope, you got to use white tape. I said, well, we got a memorandum that has to match the shoe, right? So anyway, so he comes out, we re-spat him. The quarterback goes in the game. He goes, what I would call is to hand the ball off. Let's run search, right? So he hands the ball off. Ricky goes in and almost brings us back to win. But before we went into the game, my general manager said, if you don't win the next 2 games, you're fired. I said, cool. I said, what if I lose the first one of the 2? He goes, I'm not sure what they want. So we lost. Anyway, I got fired on my birthday, September 21st. Oh, great birthday present. But yeah, that was quite the experience. And I did promise Ricky Foggy that he would play, even if he was hurt. And I lived up to my end. It's just that I couldn't hang on to see it through, right? Because Foggy was special, just like Donegan and all those guys, right? I made a promise, and he almost, I tell you what, it was one play away from him winning the game on a 28 or 21 point deficit going in the 4th quarter. But that was one of my most, even though I got fired, most rewarding time. I got to keep my promise. So that's, to me, that's important. The next thing I think, I got Coach of the Year in 1991 for the most fantastic team I ever coached, the Argos that year. But in 1997, I was with the BC Lions, and it was a nightmare because there's so many things we had to clean up. Mr. Braley and I were playing Winnipeg, and I had to go across the field and choke Jeff Rimel's neck because there was a bounty on our players. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, then the reason why I knew is because their veteran players, about 5 of them played for me at Toronto and at Memphis. And they came and told me before the game. And so when they hit the last drive, I mean, they kicked our ass, but the last drive, Damon Allen scrambled. And he was running down the field. The guy took him down, and another guy came in late and speared him. And there's already 18 personal fouls, and you don't get them in a year. So I said, okay, you don't do that to my quarterback or anybody on my team. So I went across the field, and I decided the closer I got to him, the more I started calming down a little bit. But I still got after him. You're not going to do that to my players. No way. So they're going to press charges, but I know too much stuff on those guys for them to do anything. I knew the guy from when we were at Vegas, and that blew away a little bit. But at the end of the year, the CFL decided I was the coach of the year. And that's the most rewarding coach of the year I've ever had, because they knew I had their back, but I also knew the players had my back. And I know it's kind of weird to talk that way, but it's just the way I am. I love my guys. Hopefully there was love both ways, right? So I get a little emotional now thinking about it.
Okay, so when you come to CFL, you said there were 4 coaches that were paid on staff.
Trestman was the one that started the big staffs, like an NFL staff. And so everybody's trying to keep up. It's just budget rule, right? When you get a guy like Trestman that can add coaches, every other team wants to add coaches, the coaching staff. I kept it to 6. I think that after a while you get too many people, and then now you got to have way too many meetings to get everybody organized. When I worked for Don, we had one meeting. He told us what we're going to do for the whole year, what we have to do. One meeting, organizational meeting. And every day we had a routine, and anytime he changed it, he would let us know. But I think the whole time I was with him, he might have changed it maybe once a year. Oh, we're going to do a change up, and we're going to go maybe practice here at this time instead of whatever, right? That way we didn't have to meet. We always knew what was happening because he set the schedule for the year. What days off, not that we had any days off as coaches, but for the players too, right? They want to know when the days off is going to be, if it's consistent, so they can kind of get into a groove, right? Don was really a groove guy. Once we get it going one way, we're all creatures of habit, and he didn't like meetings either. So it was perfect. So we had extra time to do what we have to do instead of getting caught up in the meeting, to know when we're going to have a water break, or what time we're meeting, or how long the practice is going to be, stuff like that. I remember one story. I think he was talking to the general manager, and he was like 5 minutes after practice started, he's still not down. So I'm down. We had a nice facility at BC in Surrey, and so I'm the next guy up. So I said, everybody's looking at me. When we're going to start practice? I'm looking for Don. He's not around. So I said, let's go. So about 10 minutes later, he comes down. Who started practice? I said, I did. He goes, I got one job to do, and that's to start the practice and end the practice. And you take that away, what do you want me to do now? I said, you can end practice. Started laughing. I go, Coach, we only got 4.5 hours with this guy. You took away a whole period from us by being late. He goes, yeah, I know. So, and then there's guys that want to meet all the time. Assistant coach, when are you going to do your thing, right? But Don was very confident, sometimes arrogant, all in perfect timing. And he was really good to work for, very, very good to play for. He was a player's coach. We didn't put pads on. I said, we had training camp. Once the season starts, we never went out. Everything was helmets, shorts. How did you guys win so many games without all that hitting? I have no clue, but the players loved it because they didn't get beat up every day, right? Because 94% of your time is practice. Game time is like 4%. So all that time you put in, if you practice and hit every day, it shortens your career. So we always try to work on grass. Of course, if it's a wet day, you have to go on turf. In fact, we never went on turf. We always were on the grass, even on the wet days. Toronto, we did go on the grass because it was run by the school, and they didn't want us to ruin the field. Whereas in the BC place, we had field and a half, so we could switch, right? And it was our field. Time-wise, you didn't waste a lot of time traveling. Everybody's different. It's like here I'm in Berlin, and everything's so far apart. Some players have to come full 5 hours to come to practice. So, and you can't practice during the day because they work.
What is a coaching day? When you were in the CFL, how long of a day? Did you start at 6 a.m, finish at midnight? What was your day like in the season?
Well, Don came in about 10 o'clock because we stayed late. And now with computers, we didn't use computers early in the career, but it's like computers and the internet, you can do a lot of work at home and convert all that stuff. Some people want you in the office because that's why they pay rent, right? But I would come in just before dawn to get ready, and then I'd meet with the O-line coach because there's only two of us who shared the same office, did the practice plan, looked at video, got ready for our meeting. The guys came in at 4, and so we were there from 10 to 4 or 5, something like that. And because we had a 4.5-hour rule, and the players voted as to what time they wanted to start, because some guys were school teachers or they had their own business or whatever. So we accommodated them. But the later you start, it doesn't mean you came in any differently, right? We try to come in at 10 at the latest. But by the time you get done, you get home, and you get ready for the next day, you don't get to sleep to 3. So I average 4.5 hours during the season of sleep a day. That's not anybody's fault but my own. It's because my brain is like always. And at that time, my younger time, I didn't know how to distract myself to be able to fall asleep. Now what I do is I do a lot of reading, take myself away from football, right? And then I'll fall asleep. I only get 1 page in because I'm so tired, but I found that to be really good. The other thing I found when I was really coaching in the CFL, I had a notepad by my bed. So if an idea came to me and woke me up, I would write it down and I could go back to sleep. But kind of the way I got to get some good sleep.
Adam, Rita, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Take it easy, man. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Have fun at practice tonight.
Third Down Gamble uses the expert resources of the Canadian Football League and 3 Down Nation. For up-to-date, insightful statistics and analysis, please visit cfl.ca and 3downnation.com. The CFL on CBC theme music is used with written permission from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you for listening to our show. Third Down Gamble is hosted on Podbean. Follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @ThirdDownGamble. Join us again next time. The Third Down Gamble Podcast. Audio worth watching.